Well, guys, we're getting close to the end with Project CRX here.
Oh, you almost had it.
Got a few things to button up, including air filter, fan, wiring, clutch slave cylinder, and then we'll be able to fire this puppy up. Welcome to VTEC Academy. You're about to get schooled.
Let's go!
Today we're working on the car, and I want to kind of go over a few things that we didn't go over before. One of the things was in the last episode you saw us putting on the K-tuned alternator relocation kit, and in reality once we put it on, the alternator actually interfered with the lower core support.
The JDM water pump on these JDM K24s is a completely different system. The alternator mounts differently, the water pump's different, the tensioner, everything is different about it. And since we need to use a USDM style, and originally we were going to try, and we did capture video of that, I think, of trying the K-tuned relocation kit, but discovered that it interfered
With the frame.
with the frame. So we had to go back to basically a stock setup with a CRV style water pump housing. The water pump that I got at the junkyard was in good condition. Went ahead and got a new tensioner just for the extra insurance of that. And then the alternator supposedly came out of a Civic. We don't know where it came from, but it's the right one, and it's in line. The tensioner, the water pump, everything's in line, so we know that that's going to work. And it clears. This all clears nicely within the bay.
And when we did that, we had to cut a little bit away from the headlamp bucket in order to get it fit. But actually, did we dent it or did we cut it?
We dented to give clearance for the belt.
That's right.
Because we were a little worried it was a little close.
A little bit close. We were thinking it was going to rub. So we put a little dent in the headlamp bucket, put the alternator back where it belonged. We used this really cool K-tuned idler pulley, which is adjustable. Took us a couple tries to get the right belt, but we got that. Then we went to look at the axles. We originally tried on the 84-7 axles that we used for the B-swap. One of them was pretty close to the right size.
And one was way too short.
And one was way too short. So we took a few measurements. We had some bars made up, and now we have axles ready for this swap as well. One thing we did run into a problem with is the joints that we're using, the outer joints we're using, have just a slight difference in the way they're shaped, and they were binding, so we threw some on the lathe and cut them down, and Hasport will be able to offer you axles now for your swap if you're doing a K-swap in this particular car. If somebody like Drive Shaft Shop or Insane Axles wants to know what the dimensions are, I'll be happy to share that with them so that they can offer the axles as well.
Radiator got finalized.
Yeah, the radiator, we wound up moving it forward a little bit.
Yep.
So if you look at these brackets, they're kind of offset a little bit. Those now set the radiator out a little bit further. That gives us, again, clearance to
Manifold and the alternator.
yeah, manifold and the alternator. Oh, we also wound up moving the radiator fan switch. Originally, we were going to try and put it on the back side of the radiator, and it was going to be nestled right between the intake manifold and the alternator, and it was too big. So we just
No matter which one we tried.
yeah, exactly. So we plugged up that hole.
Oh, really?
Which was already there, actually, in the
Sirocco radiator.
Sirocco radiator, and then we just moved it to one of the ends where there was plenty of room.
Drilled a hole in the side tank down low.
Yep.
Made a bung and welded it on.
Welded it on. The shift cables
These are
are actually
RSX.
really long
Yeah, these were the shortest ones at the time.
at the time.
As an RSX cable set, but now Hybrid has a new short version.
They have a shorter version. We're going to try and get a hold of a set of the shorter version and see if they work out a little bit. These kind of snake around in there in order to get to the engine. There's probably an extra 8 inches that we didn't need.
We've all been there, you know.
I don't know how much shorter their newer cables are, but you know, anything's going to help. But we still were able to route them away from where the header's going to be, so we're not going to worry about them getting melted or anything like that. We just had to get a little bit inventive. Obviously, we want this thing to be able to pass missions legally. In the majority of states across the U.S., in order for you to be EPA legal, your emissions for the year car you have to stay on the car. So this particular case, the OBD zero emissions that it has is a charcoal canister for vapor recovery. So we made sure that's working. The purge valve is on there. We're going to wire that up, make sure that's working. and we'll have a catalytic converter on it, make sure that's working as well. The hoses, so when we do hoses, on something that's not had hoses before, like this particular swap, I go about it two ways. One way is to take a piece of aluminum welding TIG wire and bend it in the shape that I need it, and then I run down to O'Reilly's and I beg for them to let me back there where all the radiator hoses are, and with my little piece of wire, and I look for something that's shaped the same. I was actually able to find a hose that was actually quite a bit longer that had the shapes in it that I needed, so we wound up chopping off
Two ends.
two ends of it, and then putting it in place, and it fit just fine.
And I think it's, did you say that's the same hose you use on the EF?
This is well, actually I couldn't find that one. They didn't have one. So this was a different hose. But also if you go to our budget EF and look at the hose we use on that, that one would work as well too.
The upper hose was a little more unique because we found one that we needed one that had a 45 with a downward and a 90 with an upward, and didn't find, so what we did was just bought that hose, cut it in the center, cut the ends off, and then just clocked it. And so there's actually a spacer
It's
right
actually
there.
we made a little
Sleeve.
sleeve to join the two halves together, so that they would yeah,
You can buy
fine.
those online too.
Yeah, you can buy these online. I just made one because we had the tubing and stuff. Because yeah,
Because can.
because I have the parts. Yeah, because I have the $200 bead rolling tool, and I better use it. Otherwise, I don't feel like I
Got your money's worth.
got my money's worth. So today, what we're working on right now is Vic is working on our air filter design. He bought the air filter from Blocks Racing, which has a really nice bell mouth with it. This is the 3-inch, 6-inch setup, and 3 inches is really what you need on a K-swap. So we have a 45-degree silicon coupler with a 30-degree piece of pipe, and then we're going to be able to probably put this on the end and put the filter on. And
I was actually surprised the blocks came with like everything.
all bunches of stuff.
Several of them didn't come even with this.
Yeah,
so
and it was on sale too.
It's $42.
Yeah, $42. That's a great deal.
Pretty cheap.
Yeah, and the bell mounts make horsepower. They're much better for a car than just the standard filter. I mean, AEM builds a bell mouth into the filter, but that one honestly works a little bit better. So
And these filters are fairly universal nowadays.
yeah, they're easy to clean, and you can buy them cheap. What I'm working on right now is a hydro to cable conversion. So or cable to hydro conversion. So yeah, something
One
like
direction.
that. Yeah.
Just depends on which way you're going.
Yeah, exactly. So what happens is this car comes with a clutch-operated cable. This is where the cable comes out. I'm building a little bracket, very much like the one that I helped Hush Performance build for the EFs. So this one's going to be kind of a similar design. We're using a different slave cylinder or master cylinder. I actually bought this one from a Toyota
Okay, so he says,
because it's more compact. I still have to see what kind of, yeah, it's a double flare, so, or not a bubble flare, but a double flare, and it should work out pretty good. Right now, like I said, I'm just building the bracket so that it can go on, fit underneath the dash, and we'll see how it works out. Hopefully everything works hunky-dory. I feel like going shooting the cap out. Close your eyes.
Just flexing on it.
golly. I over-penetrated into the silicone.
Oh my god!
What did he say? That'll get you in trouble when you get home.
Yeah, but it won't get us demonetized. Video if it's not done the right way.
Now I need to figure out how to brace it in the front.
So you extended that thing,
Yep.
so we don't need the spacers.
Nope.
That fits a lot better.
And I shortened it.
Tighten
Where
it
it
up
was.
this way.
And
How many
I think
turns
what I'm
are
going
on
to do. Pardon me?
Is it all the way out? Yeah, that's all the way out, right?
Is it all the way out?
No, the plunger's all the way out.
Yeah, the plunger's all the way out. And I think I'm going to weld this right here.
Oh yeah.
And then when I actually make them, I'll make this a bent tab rather than a welded on tab.
That'll work perfect.
Yeah. What I'm going to do is there's a dimension that goes from here to here. I change that dimension and it'll redraw everything.
Right.
Not
But that's
worry
what you're
about it.
saying is that bringing it back also makes this tab
Right,
longer.
and I'm gonna make that. Yeah, I'm gonna make that a fold rather than a what it is right now. We got a little Braille battery that sits right in here. We got a little bracket that's gonna go over and kind of hold on to it. But what we've decided to do is put it in the car. 'Cause it works better when it's in the car. No, we decided to make a bracket right here that's going to use this old engine mount. This will weld on there and bolt down and go right like that.
It's just over the lower radiator hose. It
Yep.
fits perfect. I think it's a nice solution to keep it low and out of the way. And
Yep.
these cars don't have the big spaces.
Yeah, like the EF and the
Like the
EKs
EF.
and EG.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
And we're repurposing something that's otherwise going to sit there and do nothing.
it's going to look like we meant to do that. That'll
Totally.
be pretty nice.
So we have our hydro conversion. So taking the EW motor, which was a cable transmission, now we've got to go to a hydro transmission. And so to do so, we've developed a conversion to hydro, so a hydro conversion. Really, you need 3 parts. So we've got our master that will go in the engine, in the cabin of the car. We've got a bracket that was developed that we came up with this, and then obviously you need a slave cylinder on the transmission. So how this all works is much like the Hush kit that Hush Performance sells. So this bolt here goes through your pedal bolts, your primary that they all hinge off of, is our first anchoring point. Then we have this hole here. We drill a hole through the pedal assembly and you mount it there with an 8mm bolt, and then attach your master. And the master is actually a Toyota product or part we get off of Amazon. What's nice about it is it uses fairly standard fitting, but this can be clocked. You can see how that can be clocked. And so what we're doing is got it kind of clocked going towards the front where we need the line to come out at. And then the only other modification you have to make is obviously to the clutch pedal. So if we look at this one, we see that there's no hole here. Obviously this is where the cable would connect. Now we've had to drill a hole, an 8mm hole through here, and that's where our spherical bearing connects, that then comes up and actuates our master cylinder. So other than that, the only other parts we needed is right here. We need a line to come from the master to the slave. And all we did was I went down to the Parker hose store and had them build this line, and we'll be giving these dimensions on this to Robert. But what's great about this is that this orientates this line down and away, and then it arcs back through the firewall using a stock grommet point on the firewall. There's already a hole. We're going to come right out that, and then this goes right on top of the slave cylinder on the transmission. And the other item that we need a way to get fluid, obviously, to. So what I did is I went to the junkyard and found a small Honda reservoir. This is the same that's on an RSX or a Civic. Took the bracket that came with it. They charged me $7. Modified the bracket to work in the car. And then we've had to use 2 different sizes of hose. So we're going to shorten this, obviously, but we've got a larger diameter. It is a fuel rated, it's more flexible because it's like a carb fuel hose, not a EFI hose. That thicker one will go on here, and it'll be short. It'll just be in a little adapter hose. And then this longer piece goes to our factory reservoir. So we're able to keep it simple. There's no pressure in this, so obviously we're not worried about leaks or anything like that. But that's really the system. So it's a bolt in. You will have to take your pedal assembly out, obviously, to put this in, because you've got to drill this hole, take the clutch pedal off to drill the hole. But other than that, no real modifications. The only other thing I did on this one is I did remove, if you'll notice, there's something right up on top missing, this here. This is where this hole right here is where the stock cable for the cable transmission comes through. This, I just cut this off, so you can see it's been cut off on this one. I just cut it off since we don't need that any longer. It just made sure that I'd have plenty of room to get my hose through, didn't have to worry about trying to feed the hose through another hole. So optional, if you want to make it easier, you can do so. But that's it. Next step is to install it in the car, which I've already test fitted a few times and discovered the easiest way to do it is to unbolt it from the master and the booster and pull the booster and master brake assembly forward. That way the studs aren't sticking through, and you can actually just drop it, and that's why the spring is removed from the pedal, because you can articulate this out and swing the pedal up and out of the way, and with a little gymnastics, it comes right out. That is the most unfun thing to work on down there.
Basically, we're gonna come in where the AC goes, come across, make a little bracket. That's how it'll sit. So right now I need to finish taping it up and put it in the car.
Do it!
Hey Brian, how close are we to being able to try to fire it up?
I'm hoping an hour.
Ooh, today.
Live feed.
What?
All right, Brian, battery bracket's in, so I think we're ready for the battery. You'll get that. We'll put it in. No, the actual, like, battery.
They only had this empty one.
Oh. They're just prototyping?
Prototyping,
Mock-up?
yeah, just for mock-up.
Mock-up? Oh.
Is there a battery in there?
It says so.
It's supposed to have all the power.
680 cranking amps. If that doesn't fire up your K series, I don't know what will.
Lightweight cranking amps.
Base map.
Says it's not turning on. Yep. But yeah, I don't hear the fuel pump.
Oh, yeah, so the K-Pro's not turning on, so let me figure out what I did wrong. That could be the problem. No.
Doesn't
Awesome melty.
smell melty.
No.
I don't smell burning
Yeah, I
electronics.
don't smell burned electronics, so.
Here, let me see. Yep. Hey Brian, try E7. I think it might not be in the right spot.
Thanks.
You know what?
So that's error on the left fielder.
Right. Key on.
Oh,
Fuel pump.
Hey, the fuel pump turned on.
Fuel pump turned
I'm
on.
not seeing the computer.
Yeah, but the
Because
fuel
I'm not
pump.
plugged in.
Well,
oh, it's one of those.
the fuel pump wouldn't have turned on if the computer didn't turn on.
Yeah, but he's not plugged in.
There we go.
I smell lots of fuel. Is there
ECU connected.
is there a leak on
Is there a
the?
leak up there?
Is there a
Put
leak
fuel
up there?
on it.
I'm smelling like real fresh fuel. Oh yeah. Oh yes. Very much so.
Under the car?
Oh yeah. Right here.
How are we leaking fuel from under the car?
Yeah, right here
You can probably do it without the tire off, though. I'm sure, right?
Up higher.
Oh yeah.
Ready?
Yep.
Since we have no IACV, we might need a little throttle.
Yeah. I may have started this harness for another project. You know what I mean? Like for a K20 as opposed to whatever. So.
Well, you said this wasn't the original harness you planned on using, and then.
Correct. So that may be what happened.
All right. Tip number 2. Ready?
Yep. Right. Sounds like it wants to.
What?
Sounds like it wants wants to. I'll give it the gas.
Okay.
It smells flooded. Go ahead and crank it.
Our coil packs aren't plugged in, Brian.
Oh, really?
Yep.
That explains the frickin' smell.
Okay, coil packs are plugged in. I just looked, I'm like, there's gaps in those things. Should there be?
No, there shouldn't.
That's why you had them unplugged, because
Probably.
the first time we're gonna crank it, build the oil pressure up.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. That smells like burn air now.
Yeah.
Ready?
Anyway, guys, thank you very much for joining us for this episode of VTEC Academy. Please think about liking and subscribing. We are trying to make a little push towards 100,000 subscribers, and we're getting pretty close. We'll catch you next week, and thank you very much for clicking on us.